Okay, so this is going to be a quick InDesign tutorial on how to set up InDesign in preparation for your senior portfolio. So the first thing that we want to do is once we have InDesign open, we want to make sure that we are in the correct units. It's really important that we make sure that the portfolios are the correct size, otherwise they will be rejected by the publisher, which would be bad. And so we're going to go into the preferences of InDesign, and we want to go to units and increments. And you'll notice that in InDesign by default, the ruler increments are in picas. We do not want that. We want inches. And so we need to make sure that we go ahead and change that. That's going to be really important for making sure that we are working in the correct system of measurement. And so if we click OK and we go to Create New, okay, so we're here and we're able to set up a new set of dimensions for our portfolio. And the dimensions we want to work with are 8.5 inches wide, and make sure that says inches, and then 8.5 inches high. So these are going to be square portfolios. In terms of the pages, we can start with just one. We'll show you how to work through that. For margins, we're going to open this up. And half-inch margins on each side is good. We want to leave that there. And then for bleed and slug, we're going to change that to 0.125 and click over here, and you can see that it fills in the bleed at 0.125. And we'll talk about bleed in just a moment. But this is all set up now, so we can create our document. And we'll give it a second to fire up. Okay. So here you can see that we've got our first page, and this is actually going to be our title page, and so we're not going to develop that just yet. We'll work on that in a little bit, but I am going to just grab the text tool here and drag out a little text box, and I'm just going to put in title page, okay? And so I'm going to kind of just drag that here to maybe the center of the page, just to remember that that belongs there. Okay. Now you can see that we've got the guidelines here. So this purple pinkish line on the inside, this is our margin, and we want to make sure that none of our text or any important parts of our image actually cross into that. The publisher will not be happy about that. They'll actually reject your book if it looks like that. So you want to make sure that nothing goes over. Now we will talk about kind of when you want a full page image, how that should be positioned. But for now, we're just going to do our title page. Now you'll notice that every once in a while, I kind of turn off those guides just to kind of get a look as to what the page looks like as a whole. And I'm toggling that off by hitting W. And so you can turn it off and on just by hitting the W. One other thing that you may want to do, you'll kind of notice that this text looks a little bit maybe scraggly. And that's because this is just a preview version of what the document will look like. If you want to see it as kind of a high resolution version, you can go to View and Overprint Preview, and it will clean up that text. And this was, the quick preview, when we're going to be loading up lots of images, it just keeps things moving quickly, so it's not loading the highest resolution image of you to view. But if you want to see those really high-res images, then you can just toggle on Overprint Preview. Okay. So this is going to be a multi-page document. So our title page, like I said, this isn't the cover. Sometimes people mistake that. This is when you open up the book, this is the first page that you see, and it'll have your name on it and the title of your work. But we do want to add some additional pages to our document here. And so I'm going to click on this little Pages tab and come down here, and I'm going to create a new page, and I'm actually going to create 2 pages. Okay? And so we can see up here is our title, and here I can see that I have a page on the left and a page on the right. And for these 2 pages, these are going to be for your resume. Okay, and again, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm just going to, type in resume, and I'm actually going to kind of make that some nice big text here. Okay, and I'm going to copy and paste this and bring it right there. And you can see kind of as I'm dragging it, you can see how it kind of helps me center the text. And so when we have a page by page, or a page next to another page like this, we call this a 2-page spread. And we're going to be using 2-page spreads a lot. in our documents, and that's largely because our projects are going to kind of take up 2 pages each. So on page 1, we've got a title page. Page 2 and 3, we've got our resume, and then I'm going to add 2 more pages. Oops, and I kind of messed up. I inserted those pages in between my 2 pages of the resume, but that's okay. I can click on this page and drag it up here, and now I can see I've got my resume next to my resume. And this page 4 and 5, this is where I'm going to start putting the information for my very first project. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and save my document, and I'm going to go to my sample portfolio folder. This is something I put together. And in here, I'm going to call this just, Zane Portfolio. And in here, you can see that I've already got some folders where I've kind of gone through and captured some of the documentation from my project before. So this might include images or text or project posters or write-ups that you've done about these projects. And so you want to gather all of these in the same folder. And I'm going to save this into that folder. Okay, now I'm ready to start, putting, images and text on the page. So to do this, I'm going to show you an example of how you could lay out your portfolio. There's lots of different ways to get information on the portfolio. I'm going to show you kind of an easy way. I'm going to start over here on the left-hand side. And for this, I'm going to use this entire page for a nice hero image of my project. To place an image, I'm going to hit Command-D or Control-D if you're on a PC. And I'm going to go into, so I'm already in my sample portfolio, I'm going to go into my MGB project. And I've got kind of lots of images here, and I want to find one that I think is just really going to kind of be very indicative of my project. So I want to pick maybe just the best shot that I've got. Okay, and I'm going to choose this one here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of lay it out on the page. And what I'd really like to do is I'd like for this to take up the full page, going all the way to the edge. And so what happens is if I bring it up over here and kind of get it to the edge, and I'm going to hold down Control and Shift, and I'm going to drag it out a little bit more. Okay, and what we can see is that it spills over onto the second page. But that's not a real problem because I can kind of click on my just regular tool, and there's a blue outline here that I can click and drag, and I can crop the image, and that's good. But then, it seems like it's cutting off the back of the car. And so if I double click it, you'll see that you get this brown outline. And the brown outline kind of shows you what the whole image looks like, even though we're cropping it. And I can just kind of slowly move it over. And you can see here how the entire car is inside this purple line, which is good because that's kind of where all the most important information needs to be. But we actually still have a problem. And the problem is that if we took that image just all the way to the edge of the page, when the printer prints this, they're actually printing it on oversized paper, and then they are cutting it to the dimensions. And so if we only take it to this edge, when they cut it, there may be little slivers of white around these edges because it doesn't cut perfectly. And so we don't actually want to go just to this edge. We want to go to this outer red line. And this is called the bleed. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pick up my image and drag it to that corner and stretch it down just a little bit more. And I want to, again, kind of position and crop my image so that it is going off these edges just a little bit. But still, all the critical information is right in here. And if I do this, when they print it, I'll get a nice, big, beautiful image that goes all the way off the page. Now, this is one way to do your hero images. Another way could be is that you could just take the image and kind of constrain it and crop it and shrink it just to the inside margins. And when this gets printed, there'll be a nice little white border around it. And so either is okay. It's just a kind of a matter of personal choice. I kind of like the idea of having this kind of big, beautiful image kind of going all the way to the edges. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to kind of shrink it in just a little bit, and that looks good. Okay, so again, if I want to see, again, this looks a little grainy here. If I want to see what it's going to look like in total, I can click on that overprint preview, and here you can see that crisps that up just a little bit. So that's looking pretty good there. Okay, so I'll turn that off for now. Now, when you're placing your images, and this is particularly true of your hero images, you've really got to make sure that the quality of this image is sufficient for what you're printing. And so you probably have all experienced that time when you choose an image that's just really, really, small or not very good quality, and then you can just see all the pixels and it's really grainy. And so I'm going to teach you how to evaluate your images, because what it looks like on the screen can sometimes be very different than what it's going to look like when it comes out in print. And so what we can do is we can go to Window, and we're going to click on Links. And what we can do here is we can, if we have our image selected, we can see that there's some information here. I'm going to open this panel up just a little bit. Okay, and the number that I'm looking for is what's called the effective PPI, and this is pixels per inch. And this essentially is talking about the quality of the image that's shown here. Actual PPI isn't super important, but the effective PPI really is. And so this is going to tell me essentially how high of quality do we want. Ideally, 300 or more is great for printing. You can get away with kind of like 200 PPI, and that's okay. Anything less than that, you're going to really start to have some issues with the overall quality of your picture. It's going to look grainy and nasty. And so try to make sure that you're using just the highest resolution images that you have. And this is a relative measurement. And so if I were to take this image and shrink it down, okay, now I'm shoving even more pixels per inch, and you can see that effective PPI jumps up to 728. And so that's like an ultra, ultra high resolution image. But at the same time, if for some reason, I stretch this way out, okay, you can see that that begins to affect the PPI and it drops it down low. And so again, as you're laying your images out, ideally, you're wanting to choose images that are really high, and you want that effective PPI to, again, just be as close to 300 as you possibly can. Okay, so there's our hero image on this side. Okay, well, let's talk about information that's going to go on this side. On this side is an opportunity to kind of share some information, share the title of your work, and maybe some small detail images or images of the work in progress. And so to do this, I'm going to kind of just bring out some dividers, and the way I can bring in dividers is just by clicking on the ruler over here and dragging them down. And so I'm going to kind of click this one and maybe drag it to, maybe something right about there, about center. And I'm going to bring this one down. Okay, and so I'm kind of dividing this into 4 panels. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a title for my work, and I want that to be maybe in this panel right here. And this project is called Spirit MGB. Okay, now I don't particularly, not too fond of that font, and so if I click over here on Properties, I'm going to go change that to a font that I like. I really like Roboto Slab. That's the Hackberry font. Yeah, and that should work out okay. And I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to make that a nice big font. Okay, so and maybe just drag it almost all the way out to that edge. Okay, and maybe bring it up here. And again, you can notice that I'm getting pretty close to that pink line there, but I'm not going over it with the actual text. If you go above, if you went, up here, again, that's going to kind of get the publisher grumpy because you're just getting too close to the edge. Also, you don't want to get too close to the center because otherwise your text is going to get swallowed up in the fold of the book. So again, kind of respect those margins as much as you can. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make another text box. And in this case now, I'm actually going to go grab some text that I'd written previously about this project. And so I'm going to kind of open up the place where I've saved that. And I'm just going to copy and paste. Now this may be text that you get from a project poster or an instructable that you wrote. This is an opportunity to kind of go dig up all that old documentation and really figure out where it is. So let's see. Okay, so here's the stuff that I wrote. So I'm just going to copy and paste that into here. Okay, and it looks like I need to do a little bit of text editing, and that's okay. Okay, and so with this, you can see that, again, just number of style choices to be made. You can see how this kind of has a little ragged edge. One of the things that I like to do is just to fully justify my text. And so it kind of gives it a nice square edge right here, which I think is a nice little option. But you can also see that there's this little hyphens here. I don't really care for hyphens too much. And so one of the things that I'm going to do is to turn off the hyphens. And so for that, we need to, let's see, where do they stash the hyphenation? Okay, maybe type, paragraph styles. Let's see if it's here. Okay. Character styles? Nope. They've changed this. There we go. Okay, so, sorry, they've changed it. So if you go over to type and open up paragraph and click on these little 3 bars here, you can go into hyphenation. And I like to turn hyphenation off. Okay, and so if we, again, kind of select our text, go into type, go into paragraph, 3 little bars, hyphenation, turn off hyphenation. That will kind of force this down to the next line and cleans that up just a little bit. So sorry for that trouble. Okay, and then in here, again, I think I'm going to kind of apply some a little bit of styling here. So maybe I want these to be maybe a slightly different color. Okay, so I'm going to kind of make these, let's choose something like this, just to call it out. Maybe, yeah. So just adding a little bit of color to that. Now I do have a little bit of kind of space here, and you do want to be kind of conscientious of font size and stuff like that. 12 is pretty good. You don't want to go much bigger than that. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the character spacing here, just to space things out just a bit. And I think I'm going to kind of tighten up this text here just a bit. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Maybe give myself a little bit more space here. Let that title breathe a little bit. So that's looking pretty okay. Okay, and now I've got 3 more panels here where I'm going to add some images. And so I'm going to come in here, and I really want to include this picture of just kind of how awful the car looked when I first started. Again, I want to kind of make it, kind of a nice square shape. And so I'm going to blow it up. I'm going to kind of crop it to a square. I'm going to shrink it down just a little bit and kind of center it here in this space. Okay, and then I can double click. Again, I can see kind of the whole thing there, and I can kind of move it inside that shape to capture kind of, as much of the car that I can. Okay, and so now what I can do is I want to make 2 more images just like that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste and kind of put these here. Okay, and I'm going to swap these images out. I, know that it's not going to be super compelling to have the same image multiple times. But what I can do is once I have this formatted that I like, I can copy and paste it here. And again, I can select this and I can hit that Control D or Command D, again, just depending on what operating system you're on. And I can choose another image. And so in this case, I'm going to choose this one. And so this was the carburetor that I rebuilt for it. And again, I can kind of resize it and position it to kind of show that work there. And I'm going to go swap this one out. And for this one, I'm going to choose maybe one of these fun, kind of cool finished images. So I'm going to, again, just kind of resize and position. Okay. And so I'll go to View and say Fit Spread in Window, and I'm going to close down this panel. Okay. And then I'm going to hit that W key to kind of make the all the guidelines go away, and hit Overprint Preview. Okay. Again, that crisps everything up, and that's my first portfolio project page. And so this is a process that is going to get you started. And so again, you can use different layouts. You don't have to use a 4-panel layout like this. If you wanted, you could have bigger images or smaller images. But again, this is just a nice, clean approach to just making sure that you've got some really good looking images for your projects, as well as some nice little detail shots and just a little bit of text telling people about what it is that you made. This is not meant to be an instructable. It's not meant to be particularly long. Remember, the people looking at your portfolios are just going to be kind of flipping through them and just trying to get a sense of who you are. And so it's really important. Should be about 80% show and maybe about 20% tell. But that's the portfolio process. As we go on, I can add more and more pages detailing all my projects. But this is enough to get you started. And that's it.